Good day, Father Matt Williams here in my parked car on our Advent journey. We're going through Pope Francis's Apostolic Exhortation, The Joy of the Gospel. Today we're looking at paragraphs 40 to 49, which actually complete chapter 1 of the Apostolic Exhortation. So Pope Francis begins this paragraph section of 40 by identifying the fact that, we possess this great gift of our faith, the truth of the gospel and everything that the Lord has given us, and yet we're still seeking to better understand and to more effectively learn how to communicate the gift that the Lord has given us. That when it comes to communicating these divine mysteries, our human language fails at times. Like the moment we begin speaking about the mystery, we're somewhat limiting it. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about the awesomeness that is our God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And the moment we start to communicate these truths, our language falls short. If you ever, hear of mystics talk about their experience with the Lord, and they say the moment they start communicating these beautiful experiences, they're like, our words don't capture this amazing experience, what Jesus' voice is like, the beauty of Mary. They struggle when they try to communicate about what heaven is like. They're like, no words can explain it. So we hold this treasure in earthen vessels. We're broken clay pots. However, we can still communicate it, but we're always seeking to better understand and to more effectively communicate the truth of the gospel. And Pope Francis gets into this, saying that as a church, we especially with the call for new evangelization, that we need to constantly be seeking to more effectively proclaim the enduring truths of the gospel, the whole gospel. You know what I mean? Beginning with Christ, the proclamation of Christ, and then the truths, the moral law. We need to consistently seek more effective language, more effective ways to communicate this, not taking away from the truth one iota. No. The truth endures, it's unchanging. But the way that we express it can ever be improved, or dialogue more effectively with each generation or each passing generation. The Holy Father says this in paragraph 41. He says, the renewal of these forms, in other words, forms of expression, becomes necessary for the sake of transmitting to the people of today the message in its unchanging meaning. I'm thinking of one of my friends, a good friend, Teresa Liguori. She's with the Heart of Nails ministry, and I was just sent a video yesterday that she and the missionaries created about how about new evangelization and how we can evangelize. And it was a very creative way. They took something. What's the truth? The truth is we're called to communicate the gospel. The gospel must go out. And they used a very effective means with video and markers and a whiteboard, no spoken words, to teach us how we're supposed to evangelize. There's an effective use of creativity of taking the enduring truth that we're called to evangelize and in expressing it in a unique way that can inspire and teach others. If you want to see the video, go to their website, Hard as Nails Ministry, Hard as Nails Ministry, HANM.org. It's a great little video, and it's a wonderful way to teach people about what evangelization is, new evangelization. It's beautiful. The Holy Father goes on to say that, as powerful as our words are and as important our words are, there's nothing like the lived witness, right? In paragraph 42, he says, we need to remember that all religious teaching ultimately has to be reflected in the teacher's way of life, in the way that we live our lives. Remember that modern man, this is from Paul VI, right? Modern man and woman listens more readily to witnesses than to teachers, and if they do listen to a teacher, it's because they're a witness first. In other words, we embody it by the message of our daily lives, okay? The joy of the gospel comes through in everything that we do, right? So Holy Father says, right, it's reflected in the teacher's way of life, which awakens the assent of the heart. In other words, that we come to receive and embrace the truth of what the Lord has given us, right? That awakens the assent of the heart by its nearness, love, and witness, right? So the embodiment of the gospel in me, right, helps others by my nearness to them, by my love for them, and by my witness, my daily lived witness. And that's what we're called to do. The Holy Father goes on to say in paragraph 45 that we're called to have a missionary heart. And what is a missionary heart does? A missionary heart is aware of the limits of language, which I've already spoken, right? But what does it do? And this is the aspect, this is what the Holy Father has been telling us, right? That we need to step forward, we need to step out, we need to enter into the messiness of people's lives, right? We need to build relationships and walk with them patiently, helping them embrace the truth of the gospel, helping them know that they're loved, to experience the redemption of Christ, right? So what is he saying now? A missionary heart, what does it do, right? It makes itself weak with the weak everything for everyone. That's quoting St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, right? The missionary heart never closes itself off. It never retreats into its own security. It never opts for rigidity and defensiveness. It realizes that it has to grow in its own understanding of the gospel. In other words, we're always seeking to better understand the Lord, get to know him, to love him, and serve him more. It's always growing, right? And discerning the paths of the Spirit. In other words, what's the Lord calling us to do today? How's he calling us to evangelize? Who's he calling to reach out to, right? And so it always does what it can, even if in the process its shoes get soiled by the mud of the street. So in other words, it's messy. Remember, the shepherd needs to smell like the sheep, right? A missionary heart rolls up the sleeves and gets messy. That video, the Hard as Nails ministry video, shows powerfully that one of the ways by which we can evangelize is by entering into people's pain and suffering and sharing what Christ has done for us, identifying with them, what they're going through, and saying, well, here's how the Lord has worked in my life, sharing in the power of Christ's redemption, and then leading them, inviting them to encounter Christ. This is what the Holy Father is getting at here. He's saying we got to roll up our sleeves. We can't stay behind the doors. We have to go out. When he talks about the Eucharist, it's so beautiful. When he talks about the Eucharist in this exhortation, he says this. He says, the Eucharist is not a prize for the perfect, but a powerful medicine and nourishment for the weak. Right? That it's a powerful form of medicine and nourishment for the weak, of which we all are. We all are. That the Eucharist is here to nourish us. It's not for the perfect. It's not a prize. It's for the weak and the poor and the broken. It's to nourish us so that we can be strengthened in our weakness and perfected to live the life of grace, of charity. Okay, now, I want to say something a little bit more about paragraph 48, right? The Holy Father says, well, we're called to go out. Well, who do we go to first? Who do we go to first? Who's the first subject of our efforts to reach out? Now, granted, the Lord's put people in your life, and those people we're supposed to be attentive to. But he says that the first we're supposed to go out to, it's the poor. He says this, right? When we read the Gospels, we find a clear indication, not so much our friends and wealthy neighbors, but above all, the poor and the sick, those who are usually despised and overlooked, those who cannot repay you. Those are the people that we're supposed to go out and minister to. And just think of those people in your family. You might have elderly aunts and uncles, or grandaunts and granduncles, or grandparents. You know, we're called to go out to them and to enter into solidarity with them and to love them and to be present to them. Convicts me too, you know? We're all convicted by this message. To those who can't repay us. The Holy Father embodies it so beautifully. Have you seen the pictures of him this past week, wearing his blacks, going into the streets of Rome and around the Roman city and visiting the poor and the sick? You know what I mean? Like he's embodying this for us. He's embodying it for us. All right, so then the last paragraph, 49, these are some of his, these are the things that, make the headlines when he says stuff like this. Just, again, emphasizing we're called to go out. We can't stay we can't stay in our comfort zone. We can't stay behind closed doors. We're called to go out. Here's what he says in 49, and this wraps up the chapter, okay? He says this, here I repeat for the entire church what I have often said to the priests and the laity of Buenos Aires. Remember, he was the Archbishop of Buenos Aires. I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting, and dirty because it has been out on the streets, rather than a church which is unhealthy from being confined and from clinging to its own security. He wants us to be beaten up by our efforts of going out and not from being unhealthy, from being contained within our own building. We're supposed to go out, and that's for everyone. Me, you, everyone. He goes on. If something should rightly disturb us and trouble our consciences, it's the fact that so many of our brothers and sisters are living without the strength, light, and the consolation born of friendship with Jesus Christ, without a community of faith to support them, without meaning and a goal in life. That's really true, right? All those people, they think of what we've been given and how many people don't. We can't be selfish. We have to hand it on. And then the last, he says, my hope is that we will be moved by the fear of remaining shut up within our structures, which gives us a false sense of security, within rules which make us harsh judges, within habits which make us feel safe, while at our door the poor are starving, and Jesus does not tire of saying to us, give them something to eat. So the Holy Father speaks so profoundly, and it continues to challenge us that we need to be a church. Every single one of us is called to be a missionary, to have a missionary heart, and to bring the gospel to others. And he's not only teaching us, he's embodying it by his witness. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful day.